How would you like to come home to a bartender who will fix you any cocktail you want?
I'll have an old-fashioned.
I'll have a margarita.
Now you can with the Bartesian Home Cocktail Maker. Bartesian is a sleek machine the size of a coffee maker that makes premium cocktails at the touch of a button. Choose from over 50 different cocktails, from classics to the most exotic premium cocktails served in the best bars today. You'll always get freshly mixed, perfectly balanced cocktails with the Bartesian Cocktail Maker. And now get Bartesian's best Black Friday deal ever at bartesian.com/cocktail. Entertaining? The Bartesian is ideal for parties. No need to stock all kinds of individual mixers for complicated recipes. Every guest gets the cocktail of their choice in seconds. The Bartesian makes a wonderful gift for anyone who loves a fine premium cocktail. Now get Bartesian's best Black Friday deal ever. It's available right now, only at bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail for Bartesian's best deal ever. Only at bartesian.com/cocktail.
Waiting for mortgage rates to drop could be a costly mistake. Once rates drop, new homebuyers will enter the market and prices will soar even higher. At Churchill Mortgage, you can get a free analysis and learn how to avoid the trap of waiting for interest rates to drop. Buy now and refi later at churchillmortgage.com. This is a paid advertisement. NMLS ID 1591, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, Equal Housing Lender, 1749 Mallory Lane, Suite 100, Brentwood, Tennessee, 37027.
It's Your Financial Maven, Samantha Besnoff, CPA, and after almost 25 years in the accounting world, I've decided to share my insights and passion about money. Knowing your money and hopefully feeling less stress about your money is what I call being financially empowered. Welcome to the Your Financial Maven podcast.
Taxes. I said it. I know. Tax season is over. It's the end of May, beginning of June. Why in the world am I bringing this up? Returns are filed, although some could still be on extension, but for most of us, our returns are filed. We've gotten our refunds, or we've paid our money to the IRS. So why would I bring this up? So here's the thing. It's important that you know that your tax situation could change. Maybe you've gotten a new job. Maybe you've gotten married. Maybe you've gotten divorced. Maybe you've had a kid, or you may be empty nesters now and you're just not sure if you can take your kids still as a deduction. Life changes. Maybe you've started a business or you're just thinking about starting a business. All of these things can have tax implications, and it's just better for you to check throughout the year to see if any of these changes could possibly have an effect on whether or not maybe you owe a larger amount to the government at the end of the year, or maybe your refund could be smaller. It's really best to check with your tax professional if you have one, but if you don't have one, which is fine, there are other resources like the IRS. You can check the IRS website at www.irs.gov, and there is so much to offer on that website. And in addition, you can actually create your own irs.gov account to check in on your tax stuff, like whether or not the returns were accepted and when the payments were received, things like that. But just remember, if you are a taxpayer and you file married filing jointly, each of you need to create your own IRS account, because you have to understand that the IRS treats every taxpayer as if they are a single taxpayer, because they verify you by your Social Security number. So again, even if you file jointly, they still consider you an individual taxpayer. So you have to just remember that these changes can also potentially affect any state or local tax filings that you may have to do. It's really best to do these checkups before the year end. Have a plan throughout the year to do your tax checkup. And if you do have somebody like a CPA or an enrolled agent that prepared your returns, check in with them. Pick up the phone, give them a call, send them an email, send them a message through their portal if they have a portal, because they will take the time to talk to you. They're gonna wanna know if you've had any changes. They really would appreciate that, especially, if you get to tax time and you didn't talk to the person or the company or whomever who prepared your return, and then there could be a potentially big tax surprise, and you really don't want to have that at the end of the year. So it's important to talk to them throughout the year. And I can say, as a CPA myself with my own tax clients, It is so appreciative if you can give them a call when and if anything changes throughout the year. And honestly, if you really don't have any changes throughout the year, but you want to do a mid-year tax checkup, do that too. I think that that would be great. So I decided to sit down and chat with a couple of enrolled agents. I combined both of their chats here into this one episode because I found that their information was just so insightful and informative, and the conversations were great. But before I get to my conversations, I think I need to explain what an enrolled agent is. It's similar to being a certified public accountant, CPA. They can work with taxpayers, prepare returns, help with notices, represent a taxpayer in front of the IRS, and guide their taxpayers. But an enrolled agent is actually certified through the Department of Treasury, IRS, the federal government. They get trained, they have to take a test, they have continuing education. Whereas a CPA like myself, I had to go through 4 years of college education, although I think the college education experience has changed for our current CPAs that are just getting out of college. I believe they have to do undergraduate and graduate degree. And I also had to sit for the Certified Public Accountant's exam, although that exam has definitely changed over the last 21 years. And in addition, I too have to do continuing education, about 80 hours every 2 years. But the difference is I am licensed and certified by the state of Pennsylvania, which means certified public accountants have to be licensed by the state that they practice in. So those are really the differences between an enrolled agent and a certified public accountant. So now that you know the difference and kind of a little bit about what an enrolled agent can do, I'd love to share my conversations that I had with enrolled agents Kristen Delfaux and Jenya Rose. So welcome, Kristen Delfaux, an enrolled agent and owner of Her Money Solutions. You have been in tax and finances industry since 2004. In 2009, you decided to create your own tax and insurance practice. And now that tax season's over, welcome, Kristen. I'm so thrilled to have you come join me here on Your Financial Maven.
Oh, thank you, Samantha. Thanks so much for having me. It's fun to have two tax people talk together.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for people to hear from those of us that are tax professionals and the things that we see and all that.
In taxes, things can go in little boxes. And even though there can be emotions around the numbers are the numbers.
Exactly.
And it's not like in financial planning, the markets move and now you're like, well, all of my stuff didn't go.
Right. And I find that trying to explain that to my clients, you're giving me your stuff to do the tax work. I can't do anything necessarily beyond that. The numbers are the numbers.
Yeah. And we can plan and we can mitigate. I do a lot of work with education and planning for my clients.
Yeah, important.
So I published a book. It was called Turbo Mom's Guide to Saving Money Without Wasting Time, which I think I'm going to reissue sooner rather than later.
Nice.
But it's all about these questions that you and I talk about all the time. And I started going out there and doing talks and educating people. But I feel this real mission to help other people and get the word out. And with my practice, I have had a lot of particularly women who have come to me who have been in that same situation with their tax people. They're afraid to ask questions because the person made them feel stupid. I'm like, that's not what should be happening. We should be educating our clients. They know, I don't expect them to know the answers, but at least to know the questions to ask. This is why I started Her Money Solutions for the two reasons. One, for the solo entrepreneurs, because we walk through all of that. We walk through what are legal deductions. We walk through exactly how self-employment tax works with examples.
Nice.
We work through home office, what it is and what it isn't. Retirement plans. And then for the consulting piece with the one-on-ones, I would love for tax people, send me your people to ask the questions. I will teach them and send them back to you. I don't need any more clients.
Like I mentioned before, we just finished tax season. It's back to where it was pre-COVID. Very grueling, short 3 months to get it all done. But, you know, in the lines of understanding our money, I think people need to know that tax season, yes, it ends April 15th, but the understanding of what you're doing throughout the rest of the year that can affect that. So anything else that you can give regarding what you need to pay attention to when it comes to, could this affect my taxes? You know, if you get a raise, what do you need to do with the W-4? Things like that. Anything else you can give insights to?
Yeah, this is really important. There's a couple of things that we do, essentially the post-mortem, Monday morning quarterbacking, if you will.
Absolutely.
So one really big thing is if your refunds are like really high or you owed a whole lot, do yourself a favor. If you did it yourself, reach out to somebody to help you figure out why it happened. Or if you're working with your tax professional, if you didn't get an explanation in season, why did this happen and how can we correct it? So every single client of mine who walks out my door, if they owed a big bundle of money, they already knew why. There's no question as to what happened. And I'm giving them, okay, if you don't want this to happen again, if you're not okay with this, here's what we need to do to mitigate.
I agree with you. I have clients that start businesses and don't realize, and then they owe money. And I've had clients over the years, I've been doing this for a long time, get upset. And I'm like, well, I can't do anything about it right now. But going forward, pay some estimated taxes. We can plan for that. Let's meet back beginning of June and look at the first half of the year. Let's meet in November. You have to still keep that in mind because it can affect it and tax laws can change.
Yes. And that's the thing. So if you had something uncomfortable one way or another, you owe it to yourself to find out why and how to course correct. The second thing is if you're going to make a big financial change, or meaning you're going to sell a property, you're going to buy a property, you're going to start renting a property, you're going to take money out of a 401k, you're retiring, you're having kids, whatever, these life changes that could involve money, reach out to your professional because we can help you mitigate. We can help you see multiple sides of things if we know. And
it's never too late until it's December 31 or January 1st, right? It's never too late until it's too late in January. And at that point, there's nothing you can do.
Well, there's certain things, depending on what the situation is, may have some play legally. There's certain things we can do depending on the situation. But if you're going to sell off a lot of stock at a big old gain, I mean, not that many people maybe are doing that right now, but you know, when that happens,
but the idea.
You like the idea. But if that happens, find out what your exposure is so you know. So once you have the money, you go turn around and pay it. If you're going to have a large medical bill, you know it's coming, start tracking that. It could be deductible. It very well may be if it's pretty large.
You know, I try to encourage all my small business clients to do estimated taxes because it's important if they're paying self-employment tax. But I think it's important for those who are individuals, married, filing jointly, single, to look at that too, because you're right. If there's changes and you may owe more towards the end of the year, maybe making an estimated tax in the middle of the year is something to consider.
Because that's where you may have the cash. Or, for example, I have a whole contingent of clients who have a lower base pay, but they get really outsized bonuses. And the problem is that bonus withholding is just a flat 22 for IRS, 22%. If their effective rate is 35 after they blend everything out, they're going to be short. So what I tell them is this: I can't withhold enough on your base.
Correct.
There's just not enough. You can either A, make estimated payments based on what I give you, or I'll tell them, here's the spread. It's an extra 10%, 12%, whatever it is. I said, whenever you get that bonus, that spread, make that estimated payment.
Because it's important to know that you're trying to cover it, because it's not just about paying it at the end of the year. You might have some penalty or underpayment or interest on that because of underpaying.
And the states are wicked.
They can be. I mean, it's one of those things, like I know in Pennsylvania being a straight tax rate, but there are some credits like the 529. If you make a contribution before the end of the year, you can get some credit, get some back. Now, more people are taking standard deduction over itemized because of where the rates are. But there are more things, child tax credits, different kinds of energy credits. And you don't necessarily have that at the state level, depending on the state. So people have to pay attention to that as well.
You know, it doesn't matter where your income is. I think that planning can help you so much in not only making good tax choices, but making the good financial choices as you're talking. Because also you can have people jogging your brain, like when you talk to your tax person and you start telling them about your life. This is one of the human side of tax prep. Like I was talking to some other preparers. We go through our clients when they have babies. We go through when they lose a parent, when they lose a spouse, when they get divorced, when things happen. We're seeing the fallout and guiding.
Hopefully we can guide them, and hopefully we are aware of it before really it is too late to make those changes, and then you're stuck. What do you do?
I'm happy when clients call. I mean, I'm not happy when they call me about something like this, but they're like, so-and-so passed or my husband passed. It's very honoring to me that they'll come to me and feel safe.
Yeah. I
Sorry,
agree.
I get very emotional about this.
No, it's good to be in that same space because I do try really hard with my clients and really anybody that I talk to, because I get people that'll ask me questions, friends, family, whatever.
Yeah.
And I really try to take that care and understanding, I can't always answer the question specifically, especially if they're not a client. They'll ask me a tax question and I'll say, well, in general, because I don't have your case or your information in front of me, but I try to meet them at eye level. I really try to work with them, and I've had moments, I've had clients and times over the years where I've snapped a little bit because it happens, right? You're tired, end of tax season, it happens. But I also try not to talk above people or my clients, because the more people know, the more they're engaged and just they'll feel better. They might not like that they owe money at the end for tax season, but they'll feel better.
I try to really show them also that we're a team.
Yeah.
We're not an adversarial relationship where you're trying to sneak things by me. That's just not the relationship I'm looking for. But it's very much we're a team. And clients will come out with things and I'm like, I didn't think of that because I'm not in your life every day. So I'm happy for you to come to me with questions, aside from some crazy TikTok stuff.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if a client comes to you and I saw this on TikTok, you're able to redirect and say, from a tax or financial standpoint, that's going to get you in a hot water. So let's redirect.
Well, and my clients, they come to me and they're like, hey, Kristen, I heard this. Is this legit? I have the clients who come to me and go, you never told me about it. It's like, yeah, there's a reason for that. It's just the way my clients have evolved, and a lot of them have
which is great.
A long time. But I want you to bring questions to me because we look at things differently and I'm not in your life. And like last year, I had a client who challenged me on the basis, I mean, this is getting in the weeds and the nerdy stuff, but challenged me on the basis on his rental property that he sold. And I realized the basis was correct for the depreciation purposes, but it was wrong for the sale purposes. Because for those who are listening and who like this sort of thing, when you put a rental property into service, it's either what you paid for it or fair market value when it goes into service, whichever is lower. And I had forgotten he had purchased it higher and he kept pushing back. I'm like, no, I'm like, wait a minute, you're right.
Yeah.
You are right. And thank you for calling me out on that. Because he wasn't mean about it. It's just, I just
no, but that discussion.
And this is where the collaboration works because we are not omnipotent. And he was right. And I'm like, thank you.
Yeah. It's important. It definitely is. And it's just been so interesting because I can see it talking to you, just that passion, and you're working with your clients and all. And this whole conversation has been wonderful. I've really been enjoying just talking to you about the idea of being financially empowered. And is there anything else you'd like to share about what you do or for anybody listening?
Really, the first step is getting over being the scared part of saying, I know I need to do something, but I don't know how or where. Reach out to someone that you trust. There are a lot of good resources. I would say if you're looking for a tax person, look at NATP, National Association of Tax Professionals, NAEA, National Association of Enrolled Agents, just as a good place to start instead of Uncle Tom's, barber's, cousins, friends.
Yeah.
On the side.
The IRS has a directory now too, I think, of both CPAs and enrolled agents. I agree with you. It's important to vet who you're working with for your taxes.
You don't
and
want
finances.
them to create more problems for you.
I agree.
And so taking that first step and saying, you know what, I'm scared. I get very teary-eyed.
No, I love it.
I was talking about it with my kids all the time, and I was talking about it with my friend this morning, is that it's 20 seconds of courage. You can do anything for 20 seconds. And if 20 seconds of courage, get very
No, I love it. It's great. It's passion.
Yeah, it's if 20 seconds of courage means you make a phone call to somebody to say, hey, I need help with this and I don't understand.
Yeah.
That could change your whole world. And it could change the whole trajectory of your life because you said, I don't understand. It's okay that I don't understand. Know that it's okay. And I think if I was going to leave with anything, know that it's okay not to understand something and look for help.
Thank you, Kristen Delfaux, an enrolled agent and owner of the Her Money Solutions. It's time for a money break, but when I return, I'll continue my tax conversation with another enrolled agent.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Now, during the Jeep Black Friday sales event, get $12,500 in lease support on the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland 4xE. $12,500 lease support includes cash allowances and $7,500 federal EV incentive provided by lender as a capitalized cost reduction and is subject to change without notice. Lessees cannot claim federal tax credit on their personal tax return. Please confirm this information to ensure its accuracy and availability. Consult a tax professional for details and eligibility. Not all lessees will qualify. Residency restrictions apply. Take delivery from dealer stock by 11/30. Jeep is a registered trademark.
Welcome back from the money break. Up next is my second conversation with another enrolled agent, Jenya Rose. And just like my conversation with Kristen Delfaux, we talk about taxes and why it is so important to pay attention during the year and not just during tax season. So I'd really like to welcome Jenya Rose, who is an enrolled agent and investment advisor representative with Rose Tax and Financial based out of New Mexico. You focus on working with individuals, self-employed small business owners, and even flight crews, helping to prepare client tax returns, providing information with taxes, and helping where need be with the IRS. Jenya, I'm so glad you could join me today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, what are the things that taxpayers need to know?
Well, one of them is don't listen to other people that are telling you to do crazy things. The amount of my clients that have done crypto, if someone calls me and says, I want to do crypto, it's like, take as much money as you would take to the casino or to the riverboat. That's the amount of investment you're allowed to do in crypto. No more than that. Because I had a woman this year spend $46,000 on crypto and then the website disappeared. The person, I guess they're in Dubai, sailing around with her money. And we did everything we could do on the tax return. So it gets her a $6,000 refund. It's not going to pay for the 46 that she lost. But when people call me and want to do anything that they hear about, I always am like, first of all, do you have an emergency savings of 3 to 9 months? Let's go back to the basics before you go doing fascinating things that you hear about other people doing. Please don't.
Right. And not just the fascinating things, but things like making sure they keep their documents for 7 years, because IRS can go back and audit. And then if there's an issue, can go back a little further.
Especially if they've been putting into a non-deductible IRA. They've got to keep those documents forever.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, there are some things, like you said, the non-deductible IRAs that you really should keep the paperwork. I mean, everything's a lot more digital now. So if you started out before it being digital, then keep those original paperwork, scan them, save them somewhere, but have that information. But even moving, I've had clients who moved during the year and I don't find out about it until the tax return. And then I have to go back and say, well, when did you move and where did you move? And sometimes I find out I have to now file 2 state returns because they moved out of state.
Yeah, they failed to mention kind of some important details. We now have it on our worksheet for them to fill out. It says, did you move? These are the 2 states I lived in, kind of thing.
I have that too, but still they'll say, oh, does that matter for taxes? Well, it can.
Some of them know just enough to be dangerous, But,
yes.
But I like what you said about the estimated taxes as well for self-employed people, because everyone that I do their tax returns, they get the vouchers for the year from what I think they should pay. But I always say, touch base with me in November and let's just see, because really for the IRS, they're so unpredictable with penalties and the estimated taxes. They really only care that you pay that final 4th quarter estimate, really. So I always tell people, you don't have to pay them evenly. It would be nice for you, for your bookkeeping.
My small business clients, I have a few that I do work with quarterly, and I work through and I see, do they have to pay a quarterly estimate? How does all that work? But I have clients who don't. And then when it comes to year end, especially ones that start a new business and they have to pay self-employment tax on top of the regular tax, they freak out because it's like, why am I getting double taxed? Well, you're not. You're paying self-employment tax because if you got a wage, if you were a W-2 earner, your employer covers part of that. It's half of Social Security, half of Medicare. But if you work for yourself, you have to pay both sides. Small businesses, sole proprietors just really need to pay attention. And even individuals, like I said, not just about the moving, but like you said, whether it's cryptocurrency or digital assets or investments. I have clients who have investments and they sell their stock and maybe they have a nice gain. Well, they're going to have to pay a capital gain on that. So should they pay an estimated tax to cover it, or are they going to wait until the return is done? Those kinds of things.
Yeah, or harvest some of their losses if they tell me before the end of the year. I love when people call and just say, I want to chat for a minute about this. And then we chat about a couple other things that they never thought that they should be thinking about. It's like the better rapport you have with your clients, the more comfortable they feel to just call and just blab about whatever for 10 minutes. And it's often ends up with me finding things. I had a client who called me and we were just chatting about, I don't know, taxes, or she was buying a car. I don't know. I tell people, call me when you do anything. And then they call me when they do something that I don't care about.
Right.
So she called me, I'm buying a car, whatever. And then we got to talking a little more. And she said, what's irritating is my 401k is only worth half of my friend's 401ks. And I'm like, people always say, oh, well, my friend got a refund. It's like, well, they have a totally different situation. So I said to her, they're probably putting a different amount in. And she goes, no, these are the women that were in my flight crew class at the beginning, like when we were young, and we all put the same amount in and they have double. I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't sound right. Like, let me actually see what you're invested in. And she was invested in, the whole 401k she put into PIMCO bond fund, which was performing at about 2%. Oh, it was painful. For like 10 of her really solid working years, she was in the PIMCO bond fund, and I had her change it immediately. But it was like, oh God, there's probably more of these people who are out there who just put their 401k into whatever check boxes they decide to check on the day that H&R hands them the form. And then they leave it there they're like, set it and forget it. Oh, no.
No, you're right. Is there anything else with regards to just tax season or tax preparation that you either share with your clients or you think is important for people to know to make sure that they're going through a checklist? One of the things as we've been talking is I think it's important that they talk to a CPA, enrolled agent, a tax preparer, somebody that they trust, because you're right. You don't want them to get stuck at the end of the year with, oh my goodness, I shouldn't have done that. And now the tax consequences happen. Is there anything else you want to touch on with regards to what people should know?
If you don't ask the people in your life that you rely on, including your tax professional, then we can't help you until it's too late. I know it's a little far-fetched to think that someone would ask me before they got married, but I would actually like that.
Yeah.
Because for some people, and not for everyone, but for some people, it makes a massive difference. I had a woman who was filing head of household and had 2 children, and they had just started college. She was getting, the head of household deduction, the lower tax rate. She was getting the American Opportunity Credit, the full $2,500 per kid, because she was paying their way through college. And she got married, didn't make a peep until she came to tax season. And the problem was he is self-employed and wants to do his own thing tax-wise and wants to file married filing separate. And she didn't think anything of that. But it's like, if you file married filing separate, you will not see those college credits ever again.
And it's a hard thing. We're not saying that you shouldn't. It's just you really have to look at the difference between filing separate and filing jointly and those aspects.
Absolutely. And it's really just for the college years that it's the biggest impact. And had she called me, I would have been like, oh, give it 3 years. And then,
yeah.
Yay, congrats.
Just wait.
I want to celebrate with you, but not when it's a loss of $5,000 in credits per year and a bunch of other losses. Just ask questions before you do things. I think a lot of people, they don't really want to know what the answer. They want to do what they want to do and they don't want the answer, but at least go into something informed. And I might tell you that something's not the best idea. I was passionately talking about something at one point with a client, and she said, you called me stupid. And I'm like, oh my God, no. I called your idea stupid.
Right.
And I'm like,
You're
I'm
not
so
stupid.
sorry. I got a little too passionate, but the idea that she was hatching was just the worst thing I'd ever heard.
Right. That's not going to work.
Yeah, no, taking money out of a 401k to buy a rental. And it was like, oh God, stop.
But it's been hard because I think, the last few years, partly because of COVID, but all these tax law changes that have been happening and trying to keep up with that. And people, we're keeping up with it. The everyday average taxpayer isn't necessarily going to know because they're not paying attention. And that's been hard. And I think from my perspective for this tax season has been our taxes are getting back to where it was pre-COVID, 2019 tax years, and the Tax Act that was passed in 2018, like things are starting to sunset and change. And so people are not understanding, why do I get a less refund or owe more? Well, because the tax rates or the tax laws are going back to where they were prior to all these changes with COVID. And that was a huge education for my clients and getting them to understand. And the same thing with that advanced child tax credit. I mean, that to me was a bit of a nightmare with some of my clients.
A total nightmare. And everyone was so disappointed. And then at the other side of that is if you are using a tax preparer and you're getting massive refunds every year and they're not really asking you that many questions, ask more questions. Because some of these returns I see coming to me, like the person was getting a massive refund because the preparer was one of those fly-by-night, oh, I'm going to get you a huge refund.
Which is a good point. The IRS brings it up and I bring it up to my clients about talking about ghost preparers and preparers that aren't necessarily trained the way they're supposed to be. And like, I always insist on an engagement letter and tax organizer, having the conversations with my clients, seeing prior returns if they're a new client, getting them to sign off on things and making sure I sign off on the return, which is a huge requirement that that you're having it done by a professional. I think that's a very valid point that people really need to pay attention to who's preparing their returns.
Yeah, because I've had one client come to me under audit and I read through the return and I said, so did you give $25,000 to a charity? And she said, no. And I said, well, were you in college? No. And it's like, oh my God, this preparer was getting her this mess. And I was like, didn't you wonder how you were getting a $12,000 refund every year? You have a good job and you make good money and you have one kid. And she's like, I just thought that was what I think people may feel entitled to a nice refund.
Then it's now I've got to deal with this and how do I correct that? And
because you're the one ultimately responsible. I always tell my clients, let's review the return together. I want you to understand what's being filed because you're the one ultimately responsible, not me.
Absolutely. I started this year, actually, not with all my clients because I started a little late, but I started doing an audio review of recording what I saw in the return, what I dealt with, and then giving that recording with the return for my clients to review so that they could understand what's going on. And, I had a couple of clients question things and I had a couple of clients that didn't have enough withholding for whatever reason. And so I said, well, you're going to have to talk to HR and you're going to have to figure out what's going on with your W-4 form that you filled out. And, if you switch jobs, maybe you're not having enough being withheld.
Yeah, W-4s, they used to be so easy before 2018.
They're a mess.
Put a number in, see what happens, Send it to me. Let me see if you should make a change. Now, my advice to most people is just fill it out as if you're single. Just check the box, single or married, filing separate, even if you're not, whatever. And then let's see how that next pay stub comes out. And then we can pop back in and make a change. Also, if you're getting $10,000 refunds every year, I don't know. That seems like a hair too much. Some people like it. But
it could be, yeah. Like there are people that do get refunds every year and they get nice refunds or they get smaller refunds. It does happen, but it's always good to review your stuff and do some tax planning and come up with some ideas of where things might be.
People don't look at their pay stubs.
No,
nobody looks at their pay stubs. I give people an idea. You should be withholding about 14% on everything, or like whatever the percentage is for them. And then I say, have a look at your pay stub every once in a blue moon and just do some easy math there. And I even send them a copy of their pay stub with like it's circled, like divide this by this. Do you get 14%? Like really keep it simple. But like, are you kind of around the, because people pop in and change their W-4 and they don't even know what they've changed it to. And it's like, let me have a quick review of that thing, after you change it.
Absolutely. I think it's important. And we don't know where the tax laws are going to go or any changes. Things will be changed. The IRS does sets for the standard deductions, I think, are going up again for 2024. And, the mileage rate, which switched in the middle of 2022, they could do the same thing in 2023. And like I had a lot of clients this year, they gave me their total miles. I'm like, well, I need it January to June and July to December because the rates changed. And so it's those things as well. And I'm sure you do too, getting out information to your clients. But people do need to pay attention. And I know even if you're not of a math or financial mind, it's important to know what is going on with your finances, even at the basic level.
Yeah. And a person can tell you what to, like the way I do where I circle, like just divide this number by this number on your pay stub. Keep this as a little template in your file and just look at it every once in a blue moon, just to make sure something crazy is not, because sometimes people will fill out the W-4 and the payroll person entering the data enters it wrong. And then it's like, oops, You know, you got to just keep an eye on things throughout the year because withholding is the biggest indicator of whether you're getting a refund or not. Yeah, there are credits, there's great credits and other things.
But it is a good indicator. So I say to all my listeners, it's very important to pay attention. If you're just not understanding or not sure and you have a tax professional or someone who does that work, call them up, send them an email. It's important.
Absolutely. And even call up a tax preparer. If you don't have a tax preparer, just call one up and talk to them for 5 minutes. 10 minutes or less doesn't cost anything with me. I'm always like, oh my gosh, call me. It's like, I'm not aggressively trying to get anyone as a client. I just want to give you the info you need and then you work from there.
And it's not even just talking to tax preparers or professionals. You know, the IRS actually has some really good tools on their website for W-4 calculation, for some tax planning calculations. So it's a matter of just, you know, messing around with the IRS site. And I've actually encouraged all of my clients to get their irs.gov account because it makes it easier to pull up transcripts and information.
Oh, that's fantastic. At how easy it is to talk to revenue offices and have penalties abated and do things. They say that only a certain percentage of people even respond to an
because
IRS
they're
notice.
Scared.
They're scared. Yeah.
They're scared. And you shouldn't be scared. Yes, It can be scary. The IRS is not going to come banging on your door, knocking it down. The IRS will send you letters. You know, they're going to question something or they reviewed it and they did the matching and something didn't look right. And you really have to start with, okay, calling them and finding out what is it that they have that you didn't have. If you have someone helping you with your tax work, preparing your returns, have them help you work through it. It's not as scary as people are made out to believe.
No, it is not that scary. And there's no such thing as debtor's prison.
Right.
You know, people ask me some ridiculous things sometimes where I'm like, wait, that's totally not a thing. And they're like, oh, I was scared that was a thing. And sometimes the more you find out, the less scary things can be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I have clients be like, I don't want to get arrested by the IRS. And I'm like, well, you won't. We'll prepare the return based off of what you give me. And I say to especially my small business clients, and some of them do cash, credit card, third payer, you know, whatever. And I say, you need to report all of your income. And that's what I'm telling you. Now, I have had clients over the years that I know don't give me all of their income, but I put it out there saying, I must have all of your income to prepare your return. And that if you choose to not show cash or something, then, you know, the responsibility at the end is you. And if the IRS comes sending you a letter questioning this, you're going to have to be able to prove why you reported the way you did.
And knowing about Taxpayer Advocate is also a fantastic thing just to have in the back of your. I've only had to use it one time, 14 calls, and I could not get something resolved with them. And I got a Taxpayer Advocate, and she was beyond fantastic. And
absolutely, very good resource.
Fix the whole thing. I didn't even know it existed. And I had been doing taxes for about 8 years at the time. I don't know how I missed that workshop, but
right. And I think that's what I try to tell my clients as well is as much as I know and as much as I do, sometimes things can get missed and we have to just figure it out and work through it. And again, if it's an issue with the IRS or your state and they've done interest or penalties and there's been issues, 9 times out of 10 or more than not, you can get those things abated if you call and you talk to them and you work through the process. All they really want is their tax money. They don't necessarily want to charge you an interest or a penalty. They want to know that you've paid your right amount of taxes. So don't be afraid of the IRS. Honestly, those people are just there to try to make sure things were properly reported.
And the fact that you can get a live appointment in your town with the IRS if you're going back and forth, you can't resolve whatever, you can just pop in there. You can get an appointment within a few weeks, sit down with someone, and they're really nice.
They are. Good point. Don't be afraid of the tax agencies. They're doing their job just like, you know, you do your job and we're doing our job.
Thank you so much to Kristen Delfaux of Her Money Solutions and Delfaux Tax and Financial Services, and to Jenya Rose of Rose Tax and Financial. These 2 enrolled agents provided some insightful and informative conversations with regards to your taxes. And like we've mentioned, it's definitely a good idea to check about your taxes throughout the year.
I want to hear from you. Do you have questions about money? Would you like to share your money stories with me, like a time when you felt really stressed about money? Visit www.yourfinancialmavenpodcast.com and leave me anything you want to tell me about money. The purpose of this podcast is to provide general information on the subjects discussed. It is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. You should consult your CPA, accountant, or tax professional for all of your specific financial needs or situations. Credits: Producer, Your Financial Maven, LLC, and Samantha M. Besnoff, CPA. Music, composition, writing, and recording by my amazing cousin, Dan Shore. Podcast editing by Kris Zarnoch of KMZen Creative. A special thank you to the Seneca Women Podcast Network and iHeartRadio, and to P&G and MasterCard for creating and sponsoring the inaugural class of the Seneca Women Podcast Academy. A special thank you to my mentor, Katrina Norvell, for guiding and giving me the confidence that I needed when I didn't think I could do this. A special thank you to all of the women who are also a part of the Seneca Women Podcast Academy. You are some of the most amazing, brilliant, bright women that I know, and I am so blessed to be a part of this group with you. I am so excited for all of your podcasts and where things will go for all of us. And a very special thank you to all of my family and my friends. You know who you are. Without your love and support for me and my life-changing aspirations, I would not be where I am today. Thank you. Your Financial Maven is a production of the Seneca Women Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
Now, during the Jeep Black Friday sales event, get $12,500 in lease support on the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland 4xe. $12,500 lease support includes cash allowances and $7,500 federal EV incentive provided by lender as a capitalized cost reduction and is subject to change without notice. Lessees cannot claim federal tax credit on their personal tax return. Please confirm this information to ensure its accuracy and availability. Consult a tax professional for details and eligibility. Not all lessees will qualify. Residency restrictions apply. Take delivery from dealer stock by 11/30. Jeep is a registered trademark.
When you download the Baker's app, you have easy access to savings every day. Get the most out of weekly sales and receive personalized coupons to save on your favorite items, all while earning 1 fuel point for every $1 spent. Baker's makes it easy to save while you shop, whether it's in-store or online, so you get the most value out of every trip, every time. Download the Baker's app now to save big on your next purchase. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Must have a digital account to redeem offers. Restrictions may apply. See site for details.